I hired and helped hire technical folks to help do the work and just kind of grew the team. And so that's sort of been my journey. And so it's been really interesting. So now I have people who are way smarter than me. There's no way anyone wants to let me near any coding right now. But at the time, it was pretty cool. It was a lot of fun.
want to be taken care of. You'd want to be asked the questions. You'd want to get something done really well. And so that appreciation was great. So I appreciate you echoing that as well.
Levi, may I add just something here?
Yes,
Sort of a different lens to this conversation is also to highlight that given that we are such a large organization and we do things like advisory, tax, and audit, we as a company are evolving to the needs of our client, which in turn means that I, as a professional, am not stagnant in what I do. And so if you look at my journey as well, is I started as an auditor, and Levi, as you said, I saw the light and was like, hey, can't do this for the rest of my life. And then moved into consulting and did finance transformation and decided, hey, I really, really want to get like so deep into learning and the technology behind learning. And the firm, within a moment's notice, was able to second me to a group that did that for a year, where I learned it and came back and said, okay, now I'm going to do people transformation. So the beauty of the firm, in my opinion, is because of the breadth of what we do, it really accommodates your changing needs. And if you want to say that there's an area that I'm absolutely loving, that I want to grow in, you have the capacity to do it. For me, it's people analytics. I absolutely love combining finance and people and together and saying what are the insights. And it's a growing field, and KPMG is allowing me to build that practice. So just to keep that in mind, because I know there are questions already. We got one in the panel saying like, what are you doing digitally to attract talent like us? And I think that is one really key differentiator, is the intersections of all these disciplines coming together and you being able to apply the skills that you're learning in school.
Absolutely. Thank you for adding that. I think, it's really a full spectrum here. I've worked with companies that have like fewer than 10 employees up to the big ones that are all household names. I definitely relate to all of this as well. So building on this, I have a couple of questions that came up. So we had a survey prior to this event starting, so I was able to get some sample questions based on, so you, the audience, your ideas. There were several questions that were specifically about cybersecurity. So I'm going to pick on Jeff and Alex for a couple minutes because they are partners in cyber, among other things. So cyber is this really interesting field because maybe like in high school you don't necessarily think, oh, I'm going to become a cybersecurity person your first year of university, right? I feel like almost everyone I've met in cyber didn't start in cyber. So it's a field that's changing, and hackers, so to speak, are getting smarter and smarter. Obviously there's probably better language that you can use here for this. So if someone is realizing now, like, wow, cyber is so important and so cool, and I didn't know it, and now I'm graduated, how can you pivot after your education's mostly done and kind of start on the path? So Jeff, maybe if you want to start with that one.
Sure. Did I mention earlier that I have a degree in psychology?
Yeah, you're a perfect person to answer this question.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've tried to, and I highly recommend this, but I've tried to guide my career with this idea of a Venn diagram that's got three elements. What am I interested in? What am I capable of or good at? And then what are the clients in the market need? And kind of what Shasta was talking about earlier, like KPMG, or professional services firm, a big firm, is really great for that. But that's how I got into it, and I did follow the kind of CPA path. I worked in industry as a controller. I ran a small boutique IT shop. But eventually, I kind of came to realize that I outgrew the capabilities within those organizations, and I needed a bigger organization. And it just so happened that KPMG was there for me at that time. But I do remember, like 25 years ago, being at this information security conference, and somebody asked the question. I'm not going to admit that it was me, but somebody asked the question, when is all of this hacking and breaches and malware, when are we going to have it kind of covered? So there's no real rush. This is what I'm telling you. There's no real rush to get into cybersecurity because it's going to be here for a long time. But if I come back to that Venn diagram, then like how I've pivoted is to nudge one of those capabilities or interests, and looking at the market. And there's lots of different ways we can look at the market from a cyber perspective. There's certainly, you think about automotive technology and all of the control systems that manage pipelines and the infrastructure of our nations, versus things like data, emails, all of the what we think about as corporate networks. Those are very different things, and they get managed in very different ways. And so what I would encourage whoever asked this question is to, how do you nudge slightly from where you are, from where your knowledge base is now, from where your interest is, from where your kind of market perception of demand is, towards the area that you want to focus on. And just speaking from experience, that's worked really well for me. And we do see, I see both chief information security officers and chief information officers who don't have a deep technical background in that area. A lot of companies, for their senior executive, they like to rotate them through different functions. And so what you'll come to understand is that it's not so much about the technical knowledge that you've learned in university or that you are learning in university. It's about, what do you do with that technology? How do you, that knowledge, how do you use it to drive change within an organization or within a system? And that's, there's a lot of different capabilities aside from the technical knowledge. And I've always been of the view that you can slot in technical knowledge to help support. Sometimes it takes a time, for sure, but the technical knowledge itself is not the barrier. It's your skills around how do you influence, how do you use that knowledge, how do you create change. I'll just stop there.
Yeah. And Alex, I'll let you take it from there.
Not much to add, though. My background is not that extreme, but I studied business, and to elaborate on that is that technology and IT and all of the environment is really there to support businesses to do what they want to do, like to make money, right? So at the end of the day, the technology is an enabler for businesses to work. So if you have a good business understanding, the technology piece, in my opinion, is a secondary piece. Obviously, if you have an aptitude and if it comes to you and you have the background, that is helpful. But just simply focusing on the technology is not necessarily required to get to those levels that Jeff was talking about, or even to become a partner at KPMG. And the other thing I want to add, if you haven't made the streamlining or the decision to follow cybersecurity yet, it's never too late to get into cybersecurity. The more skills, the more experiences that you can pick up along the way will be helpful from a cybersecurity perspective later on. What I mean by that is, and I keep it short because other ones want to come too, is I was teaching a course at a college locally, and I always told the guys, don't be afraid to go in a help desk job, for example, because at a help desk job, you will learn and you get exposed to the entire organization, and you will learn so many skills and bits about the organization, about how technology works, that will be helpful when you choose or when you are nudging into that cybersecurity field, that you have a foundation that you can build upon.
Try to use the computer off and on. Help desk.
There's no better way to figure out where things are being swept under the carpet, so to speak, than to just do the work yourself for a bit, right?
Well, you also get an understanding of the technical capabilities of the broad organization too, right? So when you're in a help desk, you see, the broad spectrum of where the vulnerabilities are from a human perspective, as it relates to the people at the organization. I'm sure Alex saw his fair share.
The human element is the weakest link.
Exactly.
Right? So
definitely makes a lot of sense. So the next question, I'm going to pick on Davin and Shane a bit. The question was, what specific tools have your teams at KPMG used to create technical solutions for your clients? And these can be data-driven solutions or just any technical ability skills. So maybe you want to start with Davin from Ignition Tax. What kind of actual, Lego blocks are you using to build your solutions?
Yeah, for us, we're building bespoke software from the ground up, and we took an approach, which was, we're building up a new culture, a new team. We're going to hire young, energetic folks right out of university, specifically because we wanted to make sure we're relevant, right? What's the technology that isn't touched for many a years, that with the technology that's cutting edge. And so to stack then the blocks, as you said, Levi, is we're working within the Azure space. We make a decision. KPMG is all in with Microsoft, obviously with Shane here, and so we went into that infrastructure and leveraging all the capabilities there. But what we knew is we needed to build something that's going to be scalable. And so from a software development side of things, we started to look, okay, well, the key thing that people are going to hold is the front end. It's that infrastructure. And do we go Angular? Do we go React? Do we stick to those, or do we go to something like Vue, right? And well, one of the things that we were really, really excited about is if we're going to bring the best talent and we're going to build this to be cutting edge, then we got to take a bit of a risk too, right? Is React, that's been out there for a long time, and obviously there's plenty of players involved that support it, and the community is quite large. Is that where we want to go, or do we want to take a leap to say we'll build in this infrastructure and go forward? And so I'm hammering home on the Vue part only because I think it's really important when you think about innovation, right? The first people who did React, when Facebook kind of started building it and Twitter did Bootstrap and all that stuff, they weren't there making a decision to say, hey, this has been done many years before. That's the safe choice, right? And it's a good balance in terms of when you think of the Lego blocks to say foundationally, go with really the core and what's right. Make some decisions for the business that's going to make sure you can stand the test of time, but also where are you going to innovate? Right? And where we chose to innovate and take a leap on is the part that's going to touch the customer. And we've heard a lot about the customer here. That's where we really wanted to make sure we get right. The part you don't see, the behind the curtains, there's lots of things that have been done. As a developer, and I'm sure there are a bunch of people here who can attest to this. If you think you're the first person to try to do something, you're wrong. Go Google it, you'll find out someone's done it. I got the university because Google was coming up at that point, and I was able to figure out how to go do something. But the things that haven't been done before, be okay to be the first person to make a mistake and fail fast. That's an expression so many people say, but it's anyways, I'm tangenting right now. But that's kind of our Lego blocks, and it's exciting because there's a lot of cloud development out there and available, and it's moving so fast. The cognitive services that we're able to do, we're creating an AI right now, and it's just fascinating to be in a world right now where you could build something and it's gonna learn. Like that's really cool, right? And it seems like it's well, why wouldn't you do AI? You hear it all the time, but it's really neat when you take a step back and you think about what you're doing is building something to learn. And it's a really great and exciting journey. But I can talk for years, but I will pass it over to Shane to comment as well.
Sure, thanks. And I think our team, the team that I'm with, the Microsoft team, we focus on a lot of similar technologies, I'm sure. We tend to focus a lot on Microsoft 365, Office 365, so that whole stack. So we're using a lot of things that businesses are using day to day for collaboration and communications, and it's all very web based. And as such, we're using things like the React framework. It's all very front end code driven these days. So it's all JavaScript framework, very little server side code. As far as tools and whatnot, again, so Microsoft 365 is definitely our bread and butter. We're also, it comes hand in hand with Microsoft Azure, React, and all the other JavaScript frameworks playing in there. And we try and mash up the works of that. And to be honest, as much as Davin's team can do a lot of like custom build things, they're still very complementary services, even across stacks like Microsoft and even the other groups within KPMG. It's interesting to see how they all kind of fit together, even though, very different technologies sometimes, but when you kind of put them together, it gets what the customer needs, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'll piggyback on this question myself, actually, just from my own team. One of the great things about working at a place like this is you get to learn so many different tools for the different projects that you do. Like I've used some of these tools that Davin and Shane have already described, but then also once I helped resolve a lawsuit with a Python script, essentially, that's what my project was for a couple of months. So it was kind of cool to, you all learn Python in first year whenever you learn it. And then, you do all these like practice exercises to learn it. Like, okay, like, having to think about leap years for school assignments, and then you got a job and you're solving lawsuits with the same skills. So we really got a good tour of everything here. Yeah,
and just want to add on to what Shane said and what you said. Like when it comes to technology stacks, I think that the brilliant part about where we're at right now is, it's a language, right? And a lot of these languages are all built within the same type of framework, right? Object oriented. So you can pick it up. It's the beauty of programming, and I'm being very specific with programming, but technology itself are all about communications, right? And so, when we look at the cloud right now and the world that we're all in, is it's integration and connectivity. And so APIs will allow you to speak between whether you're AWS or whether you're Azure or whether you're going to Google. Like, all of those things are all built because they want to open the door. And I think as digital folks, we have to welcome that, not stick to one stack and think that that's it, one size fits all. Actually, it's the opposite. Build it so that you can keep the door open. And open source codes, communities that are able to support that. That's the way forward. If you start to think about you're trying to create an IP for innovation, you're already behind because someone else is doing it. Someone else is moving forward. So figure out how you can work with them and partner.
Yeah. Thanks, Devin. And thanks, Shane, as well. So I'm going to go to the next question. I'm going to pick on Shesta for this one. And you're a perfect person to answer this question because you've worked internally to this KPMG in the past. How does one kind of stay sharp and stay ahead of all this technology? Because obviously every year the technology only gets cooler and also more complicated, more integrated with everything else. So as someone who works at KPMG, how do you stay ahead and stay on this cutting edge that we end up delivering to our clients?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I think if anyone who knows me at KPMG, they know that I have this unreal love for learning, which is why it's an area that I'm moving into. And I'm really proud to say that at KPMG, it is a big it's a big focus area. So learning isn't an afterthought. It's integrated into our all our coaching sessions, our performance management, and it's not done so from a perspective of administratively, this is something that you need to get done. Yes, you need to get it done, but it's really tied into what are your goals for the year? What are you looking to learn? What are you curious about? And then we have what it's called Raise Your Game within advisory. It's our learning program. And we know that we can't deliver all this learning by ourselves. In anyone who says that they're an expert at anything, I beg to differ because I think that things are evolving at such a fast pace. We're professionals in that field and we're continuously learning. So we've actually partnered with organizations like Pluralsight, Cubicle, DDI, Athena, LinkedIn, Degreed. There's a variety of platforms for which we get unlimited licenses. Well, by unlimited licenses, meaning we have a license for every person who's in advisory, and you can go in and do as many courses as you like at your own tempo. Outside of that, we have instructor-led courses that we also deliver on. And if there's any sort of certification program that you're interested in, there's appetite for you to take it. For me personally, outside of sort of this Raise Your Game program that we have, which is robust in itself, we also have communities of practice that we've developed internal to KPMG where we get together on a monthly basis and we do talk about white papers that have come out with what's cool that's happening, and really an opportunity to be able to share the projects that we're doing, because I think community-based learning and being able to understand what everybody's doing is a really important source of learning in itself. We do have access to publications. There's a plethora of research sites that we have access to as a result of being such a large organization. And we have this thing called KPMG Source. It's pretty cool in the sense that it's sort of like our own little intranet, and we are able to share methodologies and past papers and examples of things that we've done. And that serves as a really big learning for me, is when I'm going on a project and I know that there's work that I need to do, it's my platform, the first search engine I go to go into it. And finally, like, just, hey, I'm a learning nerd. I listen to podcasts every single day. So that's another way that I do it, but obviously that's for me in particular. I'm sure that there's other ways that other people learn on this, and would love to open it up.
Can I just build on that? Great comments, and I totally agree with you. And the learning and the education, I hope I speak for all of us from KPMG, is actually encouraged for employees or partners. Because if we as employees or partners are not learning and educating, KPMG as a company cannot evolve and even grow into new areas of business to help our clients, right? So we we encourage this behavior so our practitioners, our consultants can sort of stay with the wave of technology, or even hopefully ahead, so we can be contributors to a new emerging technology and help our clients to be at the forefront, and to to maybe even have a technological advantage over their competitors, right? So that's how we can help them as well.
You, sorry, and you know what, Alex, you just sparked something. Is that I started this whole conversation talking about virtual reality training, and then I didn't even talk about it in the learning question. So I think it's important to bring up is that given that we're in the field of consulting, a lot of what we do is contingent on our communication ability. And what I mean by that is I could be really, really good at what I do, and I want to solve client problems, and I want to collaborate with them. But if I don't know the art of storytelling and being able to communicate my point and to collaborate, really, it becomes, you know, a factor of criticality for success. And so we understand that at KPMG, and we implemented virtual reality training. And in effect, all it is we've partnered with a company called InStage, where we purchase their hardware, we get to wear the goggles, and we've created custom scenarios where there's live interaction between you and the VR characters, and you practice your ability to do pitches and client conversations, and it gives you real-time input on you know, the way that you speak, your tone, the language that you use, how often your eyes are moving away from each of the individuals in the room, and you get all that analytics. And for every hour that you spend doing VR, it's equivalent to 2 hours of actual learning. And so that's a testament to the fact that, you know, KPMG in itself, we don't just do this for our clients. We take that same technology and we implement it internally, which I find to be very cool.
Yeah, that's awesome, Jessica. Thank you for closing the loop on that. I'm glad we got that concluded as well. So we've talked a lot about just, you know, keeping ahead of the changing times by learning. So I'm gonna pick on Angela for a related question to this on the topic of change and things changing and things moving forward. So Angela, you're in a very, you know, you've risen to a very strategic position within KPMG. So you can go wherever you like with this question, but in the next 5 years, where do you think you're going to see the most kind of movement, both about your job as a risk consulting partner and also just like the clients that you serve in the next 5 years? How might you need to react to that? So your crystal ball, you can tell us what 2026 is going to look like.
Crystal ball. Oh my gosh. Okay. So maybe I'm going to go backwards first just to context it. I remember being a senior consultant at the firm when the firm was deciding whether the internet was a useful tool for us to have access to. Like I started, we did not have laptops, right? And then, you know, and then when the laptops came out, the partners got the laptops. So us, you know, poor, you know, suckers had to like still like write stuff on these legal pads and bring it back to the office and work on, like it was, you know, so I have seen a lot in my career. And yes, I was only like 2 or 3 when I started. So, you know, so I've had almost 25 years now. So and it's evolved and it continues to evolve and it keeps accelerating. I mean, I think, you know, you're probably learning this in university in terms of the pace of change and acceleration. So I think I'm excited to see about what's happening, what happens with quantum computing, especially the fact that, the problem around heat and all that, it sounds like a few folks have started to solve for that. And, you know, what does that mean? Because when you look at it from a cyber perspective and what Alex and Jeff are working on, you know, stuff that was encrypted and protected and safe like a few years ago, is it going to be safe anymore in 5 years if they've solved for that? And the thing is, with some of our clients, when you think about them in the, you know, the insurance space or the healthcare sector, like the data they have that's confidential goes back decades. So if people are able to grab that, not that I'm suggesting you should, but if they can grab that and then store it until they have the capability to unlock it. Like, what does that mean for how we protect our clients, how we interact, how we manage the risk? So there's a lot of cool things that are on the forefront. I think, you know, artificial intelligence, if we can solve for that bias challenge, the explainability challenge, and all of those things, that is ramping up. The fact that the government is investing in digital identity, there's going to be some pretty interesting and cool things in terms of how we are going to be interacting as a society. And you look at certain countries that are going, you know, cashless or trying to force that. there's also the big brother element. So how do we manage that? Because there are definitely, areas of our society that want to maintain cash, either because they're concerned about the big brother or the conspiracy theories or whatever it is, or the reality is they're in a situation in their life where that's all they can manage. Like they don't have access to banks. So there's just so many. I'm rambling on and on, but just like I'm always excited about the change and what's possible. But the biggest change is around cracking the nut on AI and quantum computing. I think are two big ones that I'm keeping an eye on. So
I would agree; those are both super exciting.
Yeah.
Can I jump in, Levi?
Of course, yes.
Yeah, I mean, and I think people will relate to this because a lot of people have been watching the COVID curves, and so we understand what an exponential curve looks like, but we really are entering a period of time where a lot of things are going to start changing at an exponential pace, and we're at the beginning of that process now. But what's ahead of us is just unfathomable amounts of change. And the two things, I mean, people are not good with change. Like they're just not built to handle change. And so probably one of the greatest capabilities that we can develop within ourselves to deal with what's coming is that ability to drive change, to ride change, to fast fail on change, to really accept and embrace change. And then along with that is that personal resilience that we need to have, because this is not a natural state for human beings. And so having some kind of like regulator within our own understanding of what our bodies and our minds need to be able to sustain over a long period of time, we have to really become close to that.
Perfect. No, thanks, Jeff. Um, so I do have more questions that I prepared to ask the panelists, but I also do want to make an opportunity for our audience members to ask some questions in the chat as well. So we still have a bit of time left. I think I'll ask another question. I don't see many questions. Wait, am I in the right spot?
I think we've got one around how do you attract technology talent as a consulting firm that I think we kind of touched on a bit, but I don't know that we fully touched on.
Let's just take that bull by the horns and do it. So, you're all engineers, computer scientists. Why would you come to a consulting firm and not go work for one of these startups that we've talked about earlier? Any takers to be the first on that one from our panel?
So I want to summarize a couple of things we've already said is, the access to learning, the support for learning, and the continual ability to learn the new and cool things. I think when I hire some of the when I have engineers or data scientists or things or folks very technical on my team, one of the surprises, especially their first co-op term or when they first join, is they're used to getting problems where the data is relatively clean, or there might be some, everything is timely and all that. And the business element, the ability to actually impact either, small companies, large companies, government, the amount of work that we're doing with various different government sectors, and just being able to have an impact in society and is cool, as well as the variety that you can do. So I've been in tax, I've been in audit, I've been in advisory, I now lead the digital area. Like I've done work with different industries, over my career, I've been able to do so many different things. And maybe I have a little bit of ADHD, but I do get bored pretty easily. So the ability to do different things and interact with really smart people. Like I've done a couple of secondments at clients where I was, the VP of finance or the VP of technology, and you notice the different level of the caliber of people is different when you're in, I guess industry as we call it versus within the firm. So those are some of my thoughts, but I'll turn it over to my.
Yeah. I'd love to add on to that is, so we definitely did talk about learning and the type of professionals you would have access to, the agility within the firm to be able to redefine your path as you move along. I think the other thing that really is a differentiator for me is this is not to discount doing work anywhere else. I think those are all fantastic opportunities. But being at KPMG, I truly believe the fact that like within a span of a year, you're atypically on 2, 3, 4 projects, and sometimes you're on projects simultaneously. And each of them will be tackling very unique problems that you're looking to solve. That level of exposure over such a short period of time really expedites like your experience. I would say like somebody coming out of a consulting firm, just by sheer experience of what you've done, it really adds a lot of dimension to your resume to be able to say, you know, when you're talking to people, you can say, I've actually done this and I've done that and I've done that. And I've had people ask me so many times, like, how old are you again? And, you know, Angela, like you said, I joined the firm when I was super, super young. I was probably 5 years old when I joined the firm. So I don't want to tell them how old I am. But, you know, to the point of I've actually been able to do so many projects in a short span of time and able to speak to it proficiently enough to have a command over it. And the other thing that I would love to highlight is that when people look at a firm like KPMG, they think, oh, they're all CPAs, CAs, and that's untrue. Is yes, like a lot of the people would be, and they're coming into audit and tax with those designations, but we're certainly moving away from that. I work with so many engineers and data scientists and individuals who have studied trades outside of accounting and finance. And for that very reason, as an organization, we're evolving where it's not just the consulting path anymore. We've also developed a technical career path where we really look at the needs of the digital talent, what kind of career path they're looking at, and measure them at different standards. So in line with the skill set that you bring to the table and help you move in the organization on that front. Very similar to how you would hear like an IBM doing it, is like a, you know, what they call like a distinguished engineer program. Our technical career path follows suit that same program model.
Thanks, Shasta. Yeah, I fully echo the part about, you know, not everyone here is like a CPA, CA. You know, there are so many different backgrounds at KPMG, and as someone who only joined the firm a year and a half ago, fairly recently, also when I was 5 years old, there's just so much to do here. Also, what Angela was saying before about, you know, being able to do all kinds of different stuff. I think that's also becoming more and more attractive, quite frankly, from a talent point of view in the current generation. I'm part of this generation, and I love doing different things all the time. So, and I've been here for a year and a half, and I've already done like 10 different things. It's awesome. Let's go to the questions for a second. So how about, what tips would you have for current university students who are looking to start their careers in consulting? It's a pretty vague question, pretty broad rather, but would anyone like to jump in? So university student wants to be a consultant. What's the best word of wisdom?
I'm hiring right now, and what I'm looking for in terms of hiring is, you know, we do need technical capabilities, but I got to tell you, I got a lot of resumes coming across my desk. I think there was 75 plus in the last batch, you know, so pre-filtered, but, you know, the curiosity. I'm looking for curiosity. I'm looking for culture fit. Like, are you going to be able to work with the team? Because we do work as a team. We don't work individually. So that's another important thing that I think it's very rare that you're going to do a project by yourself. You usually work as a team and you support each other and you learn from each other. And so I want to make sure that there's going to be a bit of a fit there. I'm looking for diversity. So I think that we are stronger having diverse thoughts and diverse approaches that we come at it. So that's an important characteristic that I look for. And am I comfortable putting in front of a client is another thing, because we do have to be client facing. But that doesn't mean everybody needs to look the same. So back to the diversity point, I'm looking for the whole package. So that's sort of what I'm looking for.
Yeah, if everyone was the same, you'd only be able to do one kind of project. So
Yeah.
I'd love to add on, like especially around the question around consulting and echoing some of the comments made in the previous topic. I think I know I can speak from my experience, and I've already shared that I thought I was the shit. Like I could do everything. And you have to think about consulting. It's such a sexy term, right? I want to be a consultant. I want to go and tell people how to do things and be asked and wanted. And you have to think about that. Think about that for a second from the other side, which is when somebody wants a consultant, it's either because they have a gap in availability or capacity, or a gap in capability. right? So when they pay you, when they're asking you to come and help, they're expecting you to know how to do it. And Angela echoed all the points: work together collaboratively, come with new ideas, be innovative. And you're coming out of university, it's a rude awakening sometimes to think, wow, how am I going to be that person? And what I would say, echoing why KPMG in terms of starting your career, and why when you start your career thinking consulting, don't think you're a consultant. Don't think that you're that magazine consultant, that all of a sudden you're going to be the person who's going to change the world. Right? Absorb, learn, and be hungry for it. And at KPMG, now with these folks here telling you everything that we're saying, which is you're going to be able to be one of a few but growing culture, which will allow you to experience, to learn. To Alex's point, um, be in a role where you get to do a lot. Because if you want to consult, you need to have done it. You need to know what it means, because you don't want to bullshit, right? People can see that. People know you don't want to be a BS too, right? So when you deliver quality, and KPMG is all about quality and doing right for the client, it's the confidence to be able to say, I know how to do that, or I'm going to go figure it out, right? That hunger, that excitement, that desire, and that experience. And so, you join a digital group like what you're hearing here in the many groups we have at KPMG, you get to be exposed, and you get to learn, and apply, make mistakes, learn what it is to be a consultant. And I think the advice that I could say to everyone is just remember, because I didn't know when I came out of university and I joined a company, you're not born a consultant, but you don't have to be. You have to learn to become one. And it's that when you stop trying to become a consultant, that's when you realize that you can do that, because you just are. You're just delivering quality services because you went and did it. So I think KPMG offers that opportunity across the breadth of spectrums you're hearing here today.
Yeah, thanks, Evan. Yeah, go for it, Alex.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I know we're coming to the end, and I just
All
wanted
good.
to add one big thing that I learned as a consultant along my career is not to be afraid to say no, and have customers and colleagues help you to show what your weaknesses are, but not in a bad way, but for areas of improvement that you need to educate yourself with. And with that, you will grow and become a better consultant and provide the best advice to your clients.
Perfect. Thanks, Alex. So we have 3 minutes left. I think it's been a really fantastic discussion so far, but I just like to do is give each panelist a few seconds just to leave our audience with just like a short soundbite, maybe tweet-sized message about, if there's one thing you'd tell yourself, when you were in your, early days in your career, what's one thing that maybe you needed to hear? Don't have to be too wise. I don't need to think about it for very long, so I only have a few minutes. But maybe I'll just start going down my list. Angela, alphabetically you're second, but I already said your name. So Angela, how about?
So the question is what I would tell myself.
Yeah, it's like words of wisdom for our just a short parting message.
Yeah. So two things. Don't be too cocky, just similar to that, and that you don't know everything. So be lean, like learn from your team. And when I think there was a couple questions around culture fit. Have interest beyond the technical. So you need to be able to talk with clients and build a rapport. And if you only know technical, it gets to be a very boring conversation very quickly. I mean, my joke can be really interesting, but you need to have something beyond the technical to talk about. So when I'm looking for somebody who has other interests besides just the technical.
I can say quick plug from my team, Lighthouse Exponential. We're also doing a bit of hiring right now, and that's I 100% agree. Like when we interview, we're looking for more than just the technical detail of the answers. For that reason, I agree fully. Alex, parting wisdom for these students.
The only thing I would really add to what I said about admitting that you don't know something is don't be afraid to make mistakes as long as you learn from them, right? Then it's an opportunity for improvement, and everyone, even your team, will benefit from it.
All right, thanks, Alex. Devin, parting wisdom.
Yeah, I mean, we all kind of said the themes. I got two really quick ones. So I live by these two kind of I don't know what the way to say, but mantras. One is confidence and clarity. Be confident in what you know and have the clarity in what you don't. Just be comfortable with yourself, and that's a hard thing to do when you're trying to prove to people, especially when you come out of school. Just be comfortable. Everyone was there. Everyone is still there, even though they might try to convince you they're not. And the second part is around just organization and management of tasks. And I still use a notebook. It's kind of a comfort for me, even though I'm a technology person. But I use that to always remind myself in terms of prioritization. There's a 50 million things you could do and you want to do, and always coming down your shoulders. But if you equate it to a notebook, you can only see 2 pages and you can only write on one. And so when you think about what you should do and focus, always think of it. It reminds me to know that you can only really do one thing really well, and you can keep an eye on something else, but you can't see that next page. So don't try to tackle 50 things if you can't do it. Just do a few things really well and get to that story, and get to your story. So that would be my words of wisdom, I guess.
Great. Thanks, Devin. And we'll really quickly, Jeff, then Shane, then Shasta.
Sure, and I would say the best career advice I ever had was don't worry about career progression, don't worry about promotions. Do your best work in the moment every single day, and all the rest will be taken care of.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. Shane?
I think for me, it'd be a lot of the old cliche things. So, keep a calm, positive energy and demeanor all the time, even when especially when the water's turbulent. That's really important. Strive to be the hardest worker in the room. Always very important, of course. And if you're going to compete with someone, compete with yourself. Don't compete with other people. Those would be mine.
I like that, Shane. I definitely, you learn how to stay calm in ways you wouldn't imagine in consulting. The problems we get are pretty big, and you have to not let your blood pressure go up too much when you hear about balancing the bank. And Shasta.
Don't take it too serious.
Yeah.
I'm going to borrow something from a book I read called Atomic Habits, which is pro athletes don't spend their time staring at the scoreboard. They just focus on their trade and learning. So piggybacking off of what Jeff said is like, don't worry so much about the title, the promotion, and the pace of it. Focus on your trade, focus on learning. And honestly, I think at the end of it, be humble and be hungry. And it defines your success right there.
Perfect. And we have someone who's reading that book right now in the comments. So perfect. Very timely. So I'd like to thank all of our panelists one last time. Thank you for the hour you spent with our students this evening. Just one last quick plug on behalf of all of us. Like, please, if you're job hunting right now, go to the KPMG website. Like, from co-op all the way up to senior manager, there's a ton of postings up right now, and a lot of them are digitally focused, including our teams and other ones.
Go to my team first.
Yes, Angela's first, then mine, and then the others. So in that order, enjoy and have a great evening. Thanks again for joining. Fiona, any last things I should say here?
Nope, I think we're all good. I also popped my email in the chat. If anyone has any questions about any of the geos and what they're recruiting for, feel free to reach out, and I can also connect you with the correct recruiters for that area as well.
Yes, the positions are coast to coast. So.
Yes.
And yes, we do digital transformation. We've done a whole bunch of them. And because I saw a question there, we didn't get a chance to answer. We do it. There's a whole bunch.
Yes. Great.
Thank you, Levi, for being an amazing moderator for us today as well.
Thank you, Levi.
Thank you.
All right,
sign off. Thanks, everyone.
Good night, guys.
Everyone.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Take care.